Welcome back to the Purposeful Wisdom Podcast, y'all. My name is Dawn Christine. Thank you so much for being here. As you know, this platform is to grow and heal and learn, and I have the best of the best on my platform. And today's guest is no different. I have with me Dom Brightmon. Dom is a certified self-leadership expert with the John Maxwell Team from Baltimore, Maryland, that empowers and equips others to share their stories. Because of his love for books, Dominique has written and published Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, the Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success, and contributing author for the best-selling book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. Find his writings anywhere books are sold, and you'll see how you too can become a better you. As the host of the Going North podcast, he interviews authors around the world to help listeners become inspired to one day publish books of their own and keep overcoming the daily obstacles we all have to face. Because of this podcast, Dom was listed as one of the top 10 self-help podcasters in the world, alongside Brendon Burchard, Gretchen Rubin, Lewis Howes, and Steve Olsher for 3 years in a row. Welcome, Dom. Oh my God, I'm so happy you're here. This is so awesome.
And I'm happy to be with you, Dawn. It's a double D session. You're Dawn, I'm Dom. It's a double D goodness session. And you got the name of the second title right for the second book. Kudos to you.
Why? Some people mess it up.
Well, it's a long title.
I speak very fast to begin with. I got you, my friend. No worries. No, welcome. I've been super excited to meet you and to interview you and to just pick your brain because I'm a fellow podcaster myself. I help people, I coach people. I have, by the time this episode airs, one of my books will already be. I have another one coming out hopefully very soon. So this is right up my alley. I cannot wait to dive in and just pick your brain.
There we go. That's right indeed. R.I.P. Wilson Pickett. That's right indeed.
That's right. I would love for you to start out and just share your journey and how you became a certified self-leadership expert with John Maxwell Team.
Sure thing. Well, thanks again for having me on your wonderful podcast, Purposeful Wisdom, because, hey, in this life, we have a purpose. And if you want to get through life and get to your goals fast, you're going to need wisdom. So you're listening to this right now. You're in the right place for both. And for me, myself, how I became a certified self-leadership expert with the John Maxwell Team, that actually, I'd say it was really during my guinea pig phase of self-development, because up until around, I'd say 2012, I had a pretty great upbringing. I had both my mom and dad. They were all about hard work and self-education. Well, more education, self-education, but I'm more the self-educated guy. But anyways, really just had a great upbringing, brought up in the church, raised in the church, had good old principles instilled into me, and had a wonderful setback here where in 2012 I had the setback sandwich of having to search and look for my father, and the police actually helped us out with that. Had to put out a silver alert, and they found him in Silver Spring, Maryland, a good 45 minutes outside of Baltimore. Then about a month and some change later, my 21st birthday, got into a car accident on my way to IT security class, no less. And to put the ending on that sandwich that I had to eat was almost lost my part-time job at the local library at the time, where I was doing that part-time while being a full-time college student. So yeah, one life we have to live. All the stuff that we try to separate, personal, professional, it's that one life we have to live, and it's going to seep into it. And I needed to change. I wanted to change for the better. So picked up one of John Maxwell's books, The Five Laws of Leadership, and became a voracious reader. Read at least almost every book I can get my hands on, and even learned a little speed reading to help me get through certain books quicker, especially nonfiction books, and really sought out to apply at least one thing from every book I've read. And that's really the way to go, because with a lot of wonderful books out there, especially with yours coming out, especially that wonderful book for the young ladies about bullying and affirmations and being a radiant you, like, hey, sometimes there may be so much wisdom. It's like, what do I apply first? It's like, do something fast and do it now when you're done with the book, even if before you finish the book. And that's kind of how I got to where I was today.
Wow. No, that's awesome because we've kind of almost think that we know our path. We know what we're gonna do. We have everything figured out. And then you get curveballs thrown into life because it's life. And you took that opportunity and created your own path. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, if there's no path, create one, create your own. Like, you don't have to follow the sheep. You can be a wolf and create your own path and do what makes you happy. There's not a one size fits all kind of thing. And I think the more people understand that, the more people are awakening to this, like, okay, like if there ain't a path made, I'm going to create one myself because you can manifest anything you want to do in your life.
Hmm. It's so true because success, it's a squiggly line. It's not a straight line, as I'm pretty sure folks might be familiar with that wonderful meme online where, yeah, you think success, you get this straight line, point A to B, but on your way to point B, you get lost at C with the letter C, and then you think you're going back to B, and then you end up with X, and you're like, dude, I knew X was going to give it to me, but not like this. And then you're trying to get to
Right.
B again, and you're at freaking J. And it's like, oh God, what am I going to get to B?
Exactly. Wait, what happened to me? Because it's a roller coaster. And I always feel that no matter what, you always come back on the path. Like some way the universe has got your back, and you're just like, okay, if I had to go to A and then I jump to Y, and now I have to go back to F, and eventually I'll get back to B because I have to go back to B somehow. And it's just like enjoy the journey, enjoy what life has to teach you. And that's why I'm so fascinated that you have all this knowledge that you retain. You got all this knowledge and set you on the course to write all these beautiful books to help others. So going north and stay the course. What motivated you to actually write them in the first place?
Sure thing. Going North, my first ever entry into the business of immortality. That book was written on a dare when I was 22 years old, funny enough. I
A
was
dare?
thinking, yeah, yeah, it was a dare,
Whoa.
funny enough. Yeah, that usually throws people off because they're like, dude, you wrote a book on a dare like that. Who the hell even dares to write a book in the first place? But I was at a
Awesome.
leadership conference and I was handing out these reading lists to people known as the 100 books for dynamic living. Because let's face it, business cards end up forgotten or in the trash. And it's like, well, a reading list with my contact info, that's totally different. Because who the hell hands out a reading list to people? And it's like, oh, yeah, look, check out this list to see what's on here. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And then one lady I handed the list out to, she was like, hey, so where's your name on this list? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's right there at the bottom. It's like, oh, no, I'm talking about your name as an author. And I'm like, it's not on there, but my contact info is still there at the bottom. It's like, no, I'm talking about you as an author. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to write about? I'm freaking millennial. Folks hate millennials and whatnot. And it's like, oh, come on. How about a year from today? You write a book. I'm like, nah, I think I'm good. Okay. How about a year from today? We both write books and we'll both be published. Name and lights. Like, nah, I think I'm good. And at first I thought, okay, that's the end of that conversation. But a friend of mine, I told about the conversation and he too was going to be at a particular meeting, a Toastmasters meeting where we practice leadership and communication. Public speaking is what it's known for. And during my presentation, I was giving a presentation that had nothing to do with book writing whatsoever. And I did have to do a Q&A session. And you could probably guess what the first question I received was during the presentation. The same
Where's your
buddy who I
book?
told, yeah, exactly. Where's your book? Like, it's like, and it was like the longest, probably 5 to 10 seconds of my life. It's like if I held a plank for like a minute, it wouldn't be as long as that moment of silence in my head. And I was like, well, I don't look like a punk up on stage. So, all right. A year from today, I'm gonna write my book. And a year later, the book finally was released after some setbacks along the way and having a set schedule and a little hibernation.
Oh yeah. Wow. And what about Stay the Course? What inspired you to write that one?
That one was basically a follow-up to the first book, because Going North, the thing was, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just listening to podcasts, reading blogs, and even had a book coach at the time to help me out with the process, but I still had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I had a timeline or a deadline, I should say, because a deadline puts a dead end on procrastination, at least for the first book. And I'm like, okay, there's some stuff in the first one that I didn't get to cover, so the second one's gonna do just that. And going through some more setbacks because sadly my father passed away 6 months after Going North was published,
Uh,
and I was lacking some self-awareness because it was some anticipatory grief with him having dementia and all. And I'm like, well, we saw this coming. It's like, hey, nothing new. I'm glad he's finally not going through that crazy disease anymore. And
of course.
little did I know that, truth be told, it was affecting me in ways I wasn't even thinking. Again, back to that whole one life point. We have this one life to live, and you can try to separate the personal and professional life, but they blend into each other. They're going to seep into each other.
Right.
And again, I had a meeting with the boss, and I was like, "Hey," she was like, "Hey, you sure you're all right, buddy? You've been screwing up in these areas again." And I'm like, "Oh well, darn! I thought I was self-aware and doing pretty good. I guess I wasn't." And I was like, "Oh wait, self-awareness. That's the major key of elite performers, and I didn't even have that key on my key ring yet, or at least the way I thought I did." So, studied self-awareness and discovered that self-awareness is the major key, and then there's about 7 other minor keys attached to the major key that helps you to have that level of elite performance that you truly desire. So it was from a place where I was lacking self-awareness at the time at a good level, or a better level I should say, and just wanting to talk about things I didn't talk about in the first book. And if anything, it was really more a polished version of the first book, because if folks usually ask like, hey, so you got these books here, so should I get Stay the Course or Going North? I mean, Crappy Happy is great too, but like, which one should I get? And I'm like, hey, go for Stay the Course. That one's the prettier, more polished version. It's like Going North 2.0.
No, I love that because I almost feel as if, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in your self-discovery and mindfulness journey, that also opened up the creative side to better yourself and include that coreness into your second book. So where now you're like, and along the way, I've learned this along the way as well. So now not only am I learning it, I'm sharing it with other readers of look how much growth I could do in just the differences of the two books.
Yep, definitely. Because the thing is, it's like there's going to be growth, and growth equals happiness, but it's also not perfection too, because growth is something that you can always have in life. It's like, yeah, after you get into your 20s, you stop growing physically, but the thing is, you can grow in other ways, mentally, spiritually, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an employee or an entrepreneur. If you're climbing up the good old corporate ladder, like as a podcast host, as an author, like you can grow in so many different ways in life, and it's never final. And heck, even some advice for like aspiring entrepreneurs or authors is the fact that, hey, sometimes it's best to really give yourself a deadline and work towards finishing things in that deadline and go with what you have, as opposed to trying to get things right, because the thing is, perfection is one of those things that can lead to paralysis by analysis, because you may focus so much on getting things just right that you never put it out there. Because again, like with Stay the Course kind of being Going North 2.0, being a more polished version. Like, hey, the first book that was on the deadline, I wanted to get it out. Second one, figured out what to do on the second time around. And the next book's going to be even better than that one. And sometimes you just have to go with what you have, as opposed to focusing all on getting everything right, because there's going to be a minor typo or five that's going to show up after you reread the book 10 or 15 times. That's going to show up when you finally hit publish and you print out your copies and sell to folks.
It's so true. And there I always tell anyone I talk to, there if you need to take perfection out of the equation, because there is no such thing as perfection. You can be perfectly imperfect, or you can work towards progress, because progress, it's all about progress. There is no such thing as perfection. So as long as you're going in a forward momentum, because you're going to be hauled ass back. You're going to be going back to point A at some point in your life, because you're like, what? Curveball, deep dive. As long as you keep moving forward, no matter how many times life throws you in a setback, that's all that matters, because that's how you grow. That's how you grow. I get
Heck
it.
yeah.
So a lot. You've been listed as one of the top 10 self-help podcasters. I mean, you're alongside Lewis Howes, Brendon Burchard, and Gretchen Rubin. Like, that's so cool. Like, what does that even mean to you? Like, to be honored and have your podcast as one of the top 10 self-help podcasts. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment, Dom.
Yeah, it's huge. It's surprise. It a lot of gratitude. Still, it's still some shock in some days where it's like, wow, this random black guy from Baltimore actually is listed along these guys with way more bigger followings than me. It's like, dude, it's like these folks, like really me. And then the thing is, what I of course, faith in God, definitely major part of my life. Faith is a big thing in my life because having confidence in the unseen, and also consistency too, because the thing was, I think I got in, my timing was right because it was around 2017 when the show started in September. And the thing was, I didn't have a perfect launch at the time. There were some wonderful hiccups along the way, but in a way, it worked out to my good because on launch day had 5 episodes, but they were just on SoundCloud. And then when I figured out how to get an RSS feed up and going through a podcast site, Libsyn was my wonderful site of choice for the feed. And when I caught up and added more episodes to it on iTunes, it looked like I launched with 14 episodes. And I promised every Thursday a new episode would go out. And 6 months later, that March, I was somehow listed on that list because of staying consistent and always putting content out there. And folks just liked it. And it's a real motley crew of folks. So it's from people with millions of views with their TEDx talk all the way to local authors in the Baltimore area to now where it's like 100 flowers are just blossoming all over the world with the folks that pop on the show. It really just faith and consistency and really just some luck on top of that because I know sometimes luck can get a bad rap, but that wonderful quote, I believe, was Arnold Palmer, if I'm not mistaken, where it mentions the harder I work, the luckier I get. The thing is, if you work hard for 6 months and stay consistent at something and you improve as you go along with that Kaizen mindset of continuous improvement, you're going to be surprised at your growth. And I'm surprised it made the list and that was Steve Olsher's list. And I didn't even pay to be on that list either. That's the even better part about it because there's like so
Right.
many ways for folks to pay to be on Forbes and these big magazines, but I didn't pay him to put me on the list. He actually liked the show and put it on there. So yeah, so hard work, faith, and luck and consistency. Good times.
No, I completely agree with you because I mean, I just started and again, when people hear this, it's going to be way, but for people that are actually going to be watching, like I'm recording this in October and I've been, doing my podcast since June. And I have so many people reaching out to me to be on my platform because it's mindset, it's mental, emotional, and physical well-being, and these are huge topics that we all need to learn. And it's just more tools for everyone's toolbox, and it's something that I actually love. I love doing this. I love meeting the people I meet on here. I love learning from them, and there's a true passion for it. And it also inspired me to write my book because you books, I have to keep a plural here. I have some journals out there too already that are published already on Amazon, but actual, books with words in them. It's really cool. It's just really cool because it's opened up so many doors for me personally too. And everyone kept asking me, well, you've had so much experience. Like, where's your book? Where's your book? Where's your book? And I was the same like you, Dom. I was like, me write a book? What are you smoking? Like, no, like who's gonna, because you play like that, like who's gonna want to hear what I have to say? And it's like, and then I had to like shift my own mindset and coach myself and be like, no, don't be thinking like that. You have a platform, like you're inspiring so many people you just by being you and showing up you. Who wouldn't want to read your book? So even you have to coach yourself sometimes and be like, it. So it inspired me to write Radiant You. And, I wanted to help girls. I wanted to give them the foundation of, shifting that mindset and having the tools that I didn't have when I was young. And, I'm a mom. So of course I'm like, here, like, this is what worked for me. And this is the lessons I learned. And if I can help you shift that or change that or see things a different way, like, here, take it, read it, like, this is for you. Like, and it's truly because it comes from my heart. And I think a lot of people that have a podcast should write a book because we've had so many experiences on our platforms. So like, do you feel that having the podcast was like the foundation for you as well to like venture out, not only for on a dare, but it opened up your optimism of like, wait a minute, if I'm interviewing people on a podcast, I could sure as hell write a book. Did it work like that for you?
If I was to do it again, I kind of wish it would, so that way I have better footing in a way. However, the thing was, it was kind of in reverse. The book was a side quest that kind of led to the podcast because I originally thought, oh yeah, podcast. Folks have told me about this radio voice for years. Might as well use it for something. And I'm like, okay, I'll start a podcast eventually. And of course, come 2016, that was when I was there to write a book and had no idea what the hell I was doing in terms of starting a podcast. It was just one of those back of the mind, subconscious mind things that I'll think about eventually, and went on that path to write a book. But then that actually gave me the clarity, kind of like with the beginning of the conversation, we talked about the success being a squiggly line. Like I ended up at the letter P for podcast after getting to point B for the book. And the book gave me more clarity to actually figure out where the heck I wanted to go with it. Because the thing is, it's like, yeah, you can start a show, but you really should know your why of why you want to start your show. Because the thing was, it's like, yeah, I wish I would have started the podcast first, but at the same time, I may not have had the clarity of where I wanted to go because my show is about interviewing fellow authors across the globe, especially first time self published authors, to really inspire listeners to join the business of immortality known as authorship. And that clarity happened, and the name for the show happened because I put my first book out there. So it wasn't a podcast directly at first. It was kind of a side quest that led back to the main quest.
Right. But it's all linked together. And now that you have the clarity, now you have the honor of interviewing all authors from all walks of life. I would love for you to share maybe an inspirational, like, what have you learned? Because you've talked to so many authors from all walks of life, all different backgrounds. Have you seen a commonality in the people you've interviewed thus far of what has inspired you or helped keep you grounded? What have you learned?
Sure thing. And funny enough, you should probably invite her to be on your show too. Karen Friedland. She just released a new book called Grab Life by the Dreams, and I interviewed
Ooh.
her back in 2022. Well, actually 2021 it came out. But anyways, it reinvention, definitely reinvention. She's a reinvention coach, but one of the major commonalities I've noticed in a lot of authors I've interviewed, especially those who are at the top of their game, is really reinvention because some were addicts in the past where they have actually had some bad upbringings or they had a got to their young adult life and things made a different turn and then they had to redirect back to where they needed to be. Some discovered faith, some discovered some other forms of spirituality, and some really just discovered writing because they shared the stories out with the world. And the thing about those who speak, especially with the audiences, is the fact that if you're good, they enjoyed hearing you speak, then they're going to want to take a piece of you home with them via a book or some other form of content. And a lot of that happens because they chose to reinvent themselves. And heck, I'll even share three magical seeds for reinvention. I kind of tackled one already, but I'm gonna share it again anyway. The first one is curiosity. You have to be curious about what you really want to do and accomplish in life and getting to your next level. Like, what are the 20 main things I can write down? So I know you're releasing two magical books. You got your memoir coming up. It's like, oh yeah, 20 ways to write a memoir. It's like, I don't know. Like tip number one, going back to some old journals that I wrote down of my in the past and see if any of those stories are willing to share publicly. Like number two, listen to a podcast where a memoirist was interviewed about his or her book. Maybe number three, like maybe interview like maybe five folks who wrote their memoirs on my podcast, learn from them. Number four, like hire a book coach and just going down that wonderful list of 20 things, taking action on those things, which leads to the second C of commitment. Once you're curious, you can't just stay curious all day and accumulate all this wonderful information that's going to be right there ready for you to consume and be constipated with it without actually taking action with it. So get committed on starting on getting your way to that goal of finishing your memoir. And then once you have that memoir out, then consistency comes into play where you have to consistently get started on the real journey of marketing and selling your book and your products. Because the thing is, a lot of folks want to, they focus on the writing and getting the book done. It's like, yeah, like writing a book, it's simple but not easy. The thing is, like
Right.
if you do one, you can do multiple, but you're going to be in a different phase of life. You're going to be a different version of yourself. Like the 2023 Dawn is definitely going to be different than the 2025 Dawn. So it's like you're going
Right.
to be a different person, and you just got to deal with the new things that come up with the new version of yourself. And most folks don't mention the aftermath where it's like, oh yeah, finally got the book done. But it's like selling, like, all right, so do I know my audience? Do I have a niche that I'm focusing on, or am I just getting the story out there? Am I reaching out the podcast to guests on their show? Am I running Facebook ads or Instagram ads or Google ads? Like, am I writing blogs towards the book? Am I like doing certain things to really get yourself out there? So if you want to really reinvent yourself and reinvent your life, be curious about how to go about it on what you want to accomplish. Then commit yourself to getting started and then be consistent once you start because it's not only the starting, but it's also how you continue. I don't want to say finish because the thing is, we got this one life to live, and as long as we live it, we want to continue as long as we can. So be consistent in what you do and reinvent yourself for the better.
Oh, I love that. No, I totally agree with that. What has been as far as consistency, because I'm still new learning, and as my podcast is growing, it's steady. It's like a steady, of course I want more people, I want more subscribers, and then I'm it's not about that for me. Like if it happens, it happens. I leave it to the universe. But as a fellow podcaster, what is there more than I can do? I am only one person, and I do my posts on Insta, and I do my posts on LinkedIn, and I do my posts on Facebook, and I advertise, and I do this stuff. I do the stuff. But I always accept, like, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. Like, my content will resonate with people that are meant. But is there any other things that I can do to spread the word, of this platform? Because I'm still learning, and to learn from a fellow podcaster such as yourself that has awesome credentials such as yourself, what else can I do? Man.
Sure thing. Well, before that, I'll just mention some things you do well. For one, when you invited me to be on your podcast, you already had a scheduling link. I like folks who have schedule links to choose from when it comes to booking out for the shows because, like, all right, let me pick a time here, and if it resonates, I can adjust. We don't have to do back and forth emails like, oh yeah, this date doesn't work for me, and stuff like that. Two, you got a fun personality and you got a pretty smile, so it's like you're good as a freaking host, which is great, and you even have a YouTube profile and you're actively sharing and putting your posts out there. I'd say focus more on also finding ways to take your one piece of content and create multiple pieces of content. AI app that I've been using for the past, I'd say maybe 3 months now. Yeah, July's months. Yeah, wow, 3 months. Go figure. Anyway, so yeah, past 3 months pod
Like, where the
squeeze.
time goes.
Exactly. It's like time. It's your friend and your enemy. It's a friend of me. More like
Oh,
an enemy sometimes. But
so true.
anyways, yeah.
So true.
time
Oh,
time just flies. Whether you have a phone or you hate it, it just flies. But anyways, podsqueeze.ai, if I'm not mistaken. It's a wonderful app where I can take my finished audio, put it into this wonderful, wonderful online software as a service and create all these pieces of content. Now, granted, it's not going to be perfect, but It transcribes the episode, which is great. So if you want to turn feature interviews into a book, there's a couple people who've done that to make more money on the side. It also creates a blog post. It also can create LinkedIn and Twitter posts as well. And it can create post quote cards as well. So it may take certain one liners that sounded good, and then it can actually create quote cards for you. And just having different pieces of content to put out there on your multiple social media platforms is definitely great. Like your one podcast can become at least 9 different pieces of content. And this other piece of information I gained from episode 333 when I interviewed Catherine Sickley Stevens, and she's a digital marketer, is that one of the happiest places on earth is the writing community on Twitter. Now, granted, folks will be like, oh God, Twitter, Elon Musk, oh, darn, ships to the moon. I don't like Tesla. It's like, okay, fine. You don't have to like the guy, but you can still use the app. Yeah, it's not
It's the
as
stuff.
it's like, dude, it's a tool. Like at the end of the day,
Right.
social media is a tool to
It's a
connect,
tool.
especially as an entrepreneur. So if you interview authors, usually I'll tag hashtag writing community, and other authors will pick it up. Eventually, they may listen to it later, and they do a lot of writers lifts and whatnot. Because the thing is, a lot of them tried to run off the app to like Mastodon, these other places, but the thing is, they came right back. I'd say a good part, most of them, because the thing is, it's like, oh, well, we don't like the guy, but the app is still where the people are at. So it's like, well, I got to be where the people are at. So go to where the people are and reach out to them. So creating multiple pieces of content, sharing it out there. Also, hashtag writing community on Twitter for those interviews you may do with authors, along with like an introductory sense, like, hey, here's this fabulous interview with Don Brightmon or something like that. And a third bonus tip would be to link your current episode to past episodes. And with every podcast episode on goingnorthpodcast.com, every new episode in the show notes under you may like, there's at least 5 to 10 episodes that I'll link up to that current episode. So that way you can create more backlinks for more episodes that folks may like. It's like, all right, so if folks like this episode about badass, you're like, hey, here's another episode about killing the confidence gap in your life to advance in your business and in your career. So yeah, so always sharing and resharing your posts, because you can share all day, but the algorithms of the internet is only going to allow a certain amount of people to share them. Like there, I can't tell you how many times where I'll share or reshare, repost something that happened 3 years ago, and somebody may be like, "Oh wow, I didn't know you're still podcasting. Oh, I didn't know you had this episode." Or like, "Hey, where is this speaking event at?" It's like, "Yeah, that was back in 2018. Yeah, I was a little slimmer back then." It's like you always share your stuff constantly, because people aren't really going to know the difference. There's a reason why clickbait is so popular these days, because most folks don't pay attention to the dates. They just see the headline. So always reshare your content. Someone may just see it for the first time, even though it may happen 5 years ago.
Ooh, I love that. No, thank you for these, because I'm definitely gonna do my homework with this stuff for sure, because I'm so raw and real when it comes to my, like, I don't edit nothing. It's so raw and real. Like, what, when we record, what goes up on the platform, like, because I want to keep it authentic. And I respect the podcasters that have all the fancy schmancy stuff and the setting, and then it's cool. And of course I would love to get there one day. But right now it's like, again, going back to, I'm not gonna let it stop me. I'm not, because it's not perfect. No, like I've embraced that I have a lot to teach and say and inspire. And it took me 3 years to start my podcast, because like you, in a same situation, I didn't have the stuff yet. I didn't feel grounded enough in myself, and I didn't want to have no imposter syndrome. I didn't want to come on here and pretend to be something I'm not. I wanted it to be authentic and real, because people can tell when you're bullshitting. I mean, plain as day. But I wanted to, heal myself in the ways that I needed healing, and have that confidence to be like, you know what? I have a new platform now. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to come from a place of authenticity, and connect to my viewers and connect to my audience and my clients, because it's coming from something that I've learned to heal in myself. So knowing what can be and what the future, that's exciting to me. Like the unknown, I'm a weird. I love it and I embrace it. I love the unknown. Like I'm like, okay, what's next? Like take me where I need to be, because the unknown is excitement for me. I don't fear it anymore. And I used to, and I don't anymore. I don't. So thank you for sharing with me, because I want to grow this platform and I want to help as many people I can. And Pod Squeeze is going to be my way of learning how to edit and clip and I don't know. I'm like, so it is what it is. What are some key strategies or tips you've discovered for aspiring authors who want to turn their stories into published books?
Yep, sure thing. If anything, past interviews can be fodder for new books. My first book, Going North, I'd say 65% of that book was basically the written versions of speeches I give to Toastmasters, these 5 to 7 minute talks. And the thing is, your past content, like the content of your life, can be the curriculum of your evolution. And the thing is, that's really what helped me to get my books out there as a nonfiction writer, because a lot of folks have a lot of content out there, especially if they've been doing one thing for so long, like conversations on podcasts that can transcribe for content later, speeches for content later. Heck, even some blog posts as well. There's books out there that tell you how to turn your blog posts into books. Sometimes you have to polish them up or even turn them into or even update them for the current age that we're in. So never sleep on your old content for one. And another thing is definitely, if you can, really speak your book into existence. Like one tip that, in front of, if I gained this years ago in one of the early episodes, is opening up a Google Doc and then talking into Google Voice, and then your words will pop up on the page. Then you just have to have somebody edit those for you, or you can chop it up and edit it yourself before sending it to an editor as well, if you don't have the fancy Dragonfly app or something else out there. Heck, even again with the Pod Squeeze app, depending on your tier of really subscription tier, like you can take the raw audio that you recorded into your computer, put it up there, and it'll transcribe it for you. And you can just use that content towards your new upcoming book as well. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. Like when it comes to novel writing, that's not my area of expertise yet. Down the road, I'll probably write some novels, especially some wonderful novels for the kiddos, especially the wonderful tweens and teens and whatnot, and the novels for them. But right now, nonfiction's my game. If you want like other tips, check out the fiction author category of the Going North podcast to learn from some fiction writers who write at the seat of their pants.
No, and that's great, because I love already how you're manifesting, like, okay, you know what? Eventually I'm going to write something for the teens and the tweens, because they're our future. I mean, like it or not, we get called old. And there is an age gap between us. I know, like, you guys are like the millennials, and I don't even know what they call people from the 80s. I don't care. It doesn't give me a name, whatever
Elder
it is.
millennials.
Yeah, I guess I'm a millennial. I don't know what the heck I am. I don't care. Like I was born in 81. Whatever I am, I am. I don't care. But we learn from each other. With age comes wisdom, hopefully. And if I can teach my younger generation something that I've already experienced as a 42-year-old woman, and I can teach the 20-year-olds and the teens and the tweens of like, don't do this or do this, mindset and all these things. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to teach our future, because they are our future. And the way the world is right now, I mean, it's a clusterfuck. I'll just say it. And, I love the fact that the younger generation is actually waking up, like they're realizing this, they're doing things on their own. They're like, I don't want to work for the corporate world. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to work for me. I'm not going to have all this anxiety and stress of working for the man or the woman. I'm going to do my own thing. Like, they're thinking outside the box. They really are. And that is so inspiring to even my generation, because it's like, whoa, like if I had that mindset when I was in my 20s, like where would I have been right now? Like how much further can I have gone? So it's learning from each other, and you're manifesting that, my friend. Like that's going to be in your future.
Ooh, happy to hear it. That's right, indeed. especially for a 24-year-old. For dyslexic folks, she's 24.
Oh my gosh, you're only 20. Oh my gosh, you have
Oh no,
so
I'm
much
talking
to
about
look forward
you.
to.
Talking about you.
24? No. Reverse those numbers. Reverse those numbers.
Oh,
And
reverse them
listen,
back.
I embrace it. I am not scared of getting older. First of all, I don't look it. I don't act it half the time because I embrace my inner child. I mean, there's a time and place to be an adult and a time and place to embrace that fun side. And, I'm gonna be vulnerable that way because why not? I get to be my true authentic self. That's what I want to do. And I hope that I encourage other people to do that, just like you do on yours, to write about their stories because you're not the only one going through something. There's others like you that you can help inspire. What was your most out there author that you've interviewed so far? Like something that was just like it took you back. You're like, whoa, like aha moment. Anyone come to mind?
Ugh, man. It was more of a, I wouldn't say wouldn't say an aha moment of, oh my gosh, this tip is so amazing. It was just the fact that this author, I believe, yep, Kat Hudson, yeah, I think it was episode 279, if I'm not mistaken. Peak performance ghostwriting. Like the fact that she can write 10,000 words a day as a ghostwriter.
What?
Yeah,
Ooh,
right? Right? I'm like, dude.
okay.
Yeah, just the fact that she was able to do that. She figured out she has this whole system where she actually has a stand like one of those treadmill desks, one of those working desks, and she could just type a story out while she's on there, does it from like 9 to 5. It's like her full-time job, and and she basically and she's a mom too and a wife, but she has a stay-at-home husband. So that's how she's able to crank all that out. So she gets to ghostwrite these sci-fi novels for other people, and she herself, she has at least, I guess, what, 50 books under her name. Like it
Oh.
was more, it wasn't like an aha. I was like, oh my gosh, it was more of like inspiring, and the fact
Mhm.
of, hey, that's something that, like, there's folks out there who can crank out crazy amounts of words, but it's like, one day I may get to that level, but it's like just her going down to a science of how she figured out what works for her best, and the fact that she can crank out that many words at one time, because she interviewed folks before she really got deep into her ghostwriting journey. Again, that curiosity thing where she was talking to folks, and the folks she was talking to was like, hey, you'll probably get to 10,000 words a day with these. And she was like, man, you just BS. And when she got to it herself, and her personal best is like 14,000 words one random day, she's like, oh, I guess they weren't lying after all. So I would have to say that I guess Kat, yeah, she was definitely inspiring. I wouldn't say it was just a tip. It was just the fact of, like, when you figure out what your state of flow is, your zone is, your real creativity zone, like, that's really where you can shine the best, is you can find that POP, that place of productivity. Like, if you can find that zone and hone into it, you can basically dominate. So I'd have to say it's probably the major tip that was actually just an example of, OMG, she's a
How?
beast.
I was just about to say that she's a beast. Like that's insane and so cool, but so inspiring too. And there was something that you just said that I was like, oh, okay, that natural state of flow. Because someone once told me, especially, in my earlier years, going back, when you're in that zone of who am I? What am I meant to do? What is my purpose? And, I would talk with several of my older friends because I love learning from older people. I love their wisdom. Like I just feed off that, like just learning from older people than me and learning what their experience was. Someone told me, Dawn, your purpose is the thing that you can do the easiest in your life that naturally comes to you. Like you don't have to fight hard for it. The thing that you do best without even thinking about it is what your purpose is. And like that along, like through my healing journey, it made me understand like, whoa, like I'm meant to coach because looking back even on my life, even when I was going through the hardest times in my life and going through my own traumas, people would just automatically be drawn to me. It's like, I don't know, I don't know, like people would just trust me and open up to me about their lives and about the most intimate things that they were going through. And I would just sit there and listen, and I would coach them, and I would talk to them. And I was like, this was even before like I got certified and did all this stuff. And I had to like think back on it, and I started putting the puzzle pieces together rather. And I was like, dude, that's the thing that I do most naturally, that comes most authentically. Like, meant to do this. Like, duh. It's like that aha moment. So it's just so cool that you get to work on different avenues of yourself, different aspects of yourself. And I always tell people, you can be more than just one thing. You can be an author, you can be a podcaster, be a mom, you could be a CEO, you can be a TED talker. Like, you can be so, like, people try to fit into these boxes. I'm like, don't fit in the box. Like, be in many boxes, because you could be many things.
Yep, be the whole UPS story, all the boxes.
That's right. It's so true. It's so true. Dom, I thank you so much for being here. I am so happy that you joined me on this episode and that you shared your wisdom with me and my audience. For those who are listening, if they want to get a hold of you and they want to be on your podcast, if they're an upcoming author or whatnot, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure thing. And thanks again for having me on your podcast. Can't believe it's been 40 plus minutes. That flew by fast.
Oh
But my
yeah.
goodness. But for those who may be watching on the YouTube version of Don's channel, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But you can find me on dombrightmon.com. That's dombrightmon.com. All things Dom are there. And all my social media, from the Instagrams to the Facebooks to the Twitters, aka X. I don't know why he likes X so much. But yeah, I'm on the X, all at Dom Brightmon for branding purposes and for the ease of remembrance for folks trying to look me up. So everything Dom Brightmon on dombrightmon.com, and follow me on the social medias at Dom Brightmon.
Awesome. No, and I'll have all your information in the description box so that people can get a hold of you that are actually physically watching this. And guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Purposeful Wisdom. Like I said, don't forget to hit that little subscribe button. You'll get notified when all new videos come out. I upload new videos every Wednesday. I am here for you. My information is also in the description box. Reach out to me if you guys need anything. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you on the next episode. Be well, guys. Thanks.